What would happen if Izuku Midoriya, better known as Deku, suddenly appeared in the world of the boys? A world where superheroes were manufactured by corporations, where extraordinary abilities were treated as profitable products, and where Homelander had convinced millions of people that being powerful automatically made him worthy of worship. What would happen when that world encountered a young hero whose strength came from one for all rather than Compound V, whose greatest instinct was to save people even when it put his own life at risk, and who had spent his entire childhood dreaming about becoming the kind of hero that this world had almost completely forgotten? More importantly, how would Homelander react when he discovered that the seemingly nervous young man standing in front of him possessed enough power to challenge him, yet had absolutely no desire to become the next celebrity hero? The hero from another world. Our story begins shortly after Deku has reached a point where he can use one for all with far greater control. During a battle against a powerful villain, an unusual distortion suddenly appears in the air around him. Deku initially assumes that another quirk is responsible, but before he can understand what is happening, the distortion expands and pulls him through. The next thing he knows, he is lying on the pavement outside New York, surrounded by people staring at him while enormous digital billboards display the smiling faces of Homelander and the Seven. Deku immediately realizes that he is no longer in Japan. He tries to understand where he has landed. But before he can gather enough information, he hears a scream coming from a nearby intersection. A speeding vehicle has lost control and is heading toward a group of civilians. Deku does not hesitate. He activates One for All, moves faster than anyone can see, and catches the vehicle before it reaches the crowd. The impact cracks the pavement beneath his feet, but he keeps the vehicle under control and carefully lowers it onto the road. The entire event is recorded by dozens of phones. Vought sees the footage within minutes. Their analysts have no record of Deku, no information about his quirk, and no explanation for the strange energy surrounding his body. They initially assume he is another undocumented soup. But the more they study him, the more unusual the situation becomes. Deku's abilities do not appear to originate from Compound V, and his body displays no biological markers associated with Vought's known soups. Vought immediately becomes interested. Deku, meanwhile, is simply trying to find his way home. He enters a restaurant because he has not eaten since arriving and begins quietly studying the television screens. The news is dominated by the Seven, particularly Homelander, who is described as America's greatest hero. Deku watches several rescue reports and quickly notices something that makes him uncomfortable. The heroes appear more concerned about cameras, public opinion, and Vought's reputation than the people they are supposed to protect. Then he sees A-Train. During a live broadcast, A-Train causes a civilian accident while moving through a crowded area and immediately focuses on escaping before anyone can connect the incident to him. Deku's expression changes as he realizes that this world has superheroes who do not seem to understand what being a hero actually means. Homelander soon arrives to investigate the mysterious newcomer. He finds Deku sitting alone in the restaurant, nervously taking notes about the world around him. Homelander introduces himself with the confidence of someone who expects instant admiration, but Deku simply smiles and says that he has heard a lot about him. Homelander asks whether Deku is another soup. Deku explains that his abilities come from something called One for All. Homelander does not recognize the name. He asks Deku whether he works for Vought. Deku says no. That answer immediately makes Homelander suspicious. He asks whether Deku considers himself a hero. Deku pauses. Before answering that he is training to become one, Homelander laughs. He tells Deku that in this world, being a hero means being famous, powerful, and loved by millions. Deku looks at him and quietly disagrees. For Homelander, that is the first warning, because this strange young man does not seem impressed by him, and even more disturbing, Deku does not appear afraid. Deku meets the boys. Vought immediately begins constructing a public story around Deku. The company describes him as an unidentified foreign soup whose powers have not yet been registered, while secretly ordering scientists to locate him and determine whether One for All can be reproduced. If Vought could discover a new method of transferring or accumulating superhuman abilities without relying entirely on Compound V, it could potentially change the entire superhero industry. Deku does not care about any of that. He spends his time helping civilians, studying the city, and searching for information about the dimensional distortion that brought him here. Every time he sees someone in danger, He reacts automatically. That behavior eventually attracts the attention of Billy Butcher and the boys. Butcher initially assumes Deku is another Vought-controlled soup. He tracks him to an abandoned building and confronts him with Huey and Frenchie. Deku immediately becomes nervous when Butcher starts questioning him aggressively, but he refuses to attack. Butcher tells him that Homelander is a monster and that if Deku is really as powerful as the footage suggests, he should help them take him down. Deku asks what Homelander has done. Butcher shows him the evidence. Deku watches footage of Homelander threatening civilians, Vought covering up crimes, Compound V experiments, and innocent people being treated as expendable. His expression gradually changes from confusion to anger. He asks Butcher why nobody has stopped them. Butcher gives him the answer he has heard too many times, because everyone who could stop them either works for Vought or is too afraid to try. Deku becomes quiet. He tells Butcher that he will help stop Homelander, but he will not become a murderer to do it. Butcher immediately dislikes the answer. He tells Deku that Homelander is not some villain who will surrender because someone asks nicely. Deku responds that he understands, but being strong enough to kill someone does not mean killing them is the only solution. That creates an uneasy alliance. The boys soon discover that Deku's abilities are far more complicated than they first realized. One for All gives him extraordinary strength and speed, but Deku also possesses additional abilities inherited from previous users, allowing him to manipulate Black Whip, use FA Gene, activate Danger Sense, and combine his abilities into increasingly powerful attacks. Frenchie is fascinated. Butcher is concerned. If Vought captures Deku, they may obtain something far more valuable than another soup. They may discover a power that can grow stronger through generations. Vought eventually sends Black Noir and several enhanced operatives to capture him. The attack occurs inside an abandoned warehouse. Black Noir strikes first. Deku's danger sense activates before the attack lands. He turns, catches Noir's arm, and uses Black Whip to throw him across the building. Several enhanced soldiers attack simultaneously, but Deku moves through them with incredible speed, carefully controlling his strength so that nobody receives a lethal injury. Butcher watches in disbelief. Deku has just defeated an entire Vought strike team while deliberately holding back. Then Homelander arrives. This time, there are no civilians nearby. Homelander attacks without warning. His fist connects with Deku's face. Deku slides backward across the ground but remains standing. Homelander smiles. He expects fear. Instead, Deku adjusts his gloves and says that Homelander is much stronger than the other soups he has encountered. Homelander takes the comment as praise. Then Deku adds that his fighting style is strange because he relies too heavily on raw power. Homelander's smile disappears. He attacks again. Deku activates One for All at a higher percentage and disappears from Homelander's sight. He reappears behind him, lands a controlled strike, and sends Homelander crashing through several concrete structures. Homelander rises. For the first time, he realizes that Deku has not even shown his full strength, and the fact that this young hero is still trying not to hurt him makes the situation even more humiliating. Vought tries to break Deku. Vought quickly realizes that defeating Deku physically may be impossible, so the corporation changes its strategy. News networks begin portraying him as a dangerous foreign soup who has entered America illegally and attacked members of the Seven. Edited footage is released to make his battles with Homelander appear far more destructive than they actually were. Deku becomes the subject of a nationwide media campaign. Vought even offers him a position in the Seven. They promise him fame, money, sponsorships, and the opportunity to become America's newest symbol of hope. Deku rejects the offer. He explains that heroes should not need a corporation to decide who deserves to be saved. Starlight watches the interview and becomes increasingly interested in him. She recognizes something she has almost forgotten about herself. Deku genuinely believes that being a hero means protecting people, even when nobody is watching. She secretly contacts the boys and provides them with information about Vought's largest Compound V facility. Deku joins them. Inside the facility, he discovers something that completely changes his attitude toward the situation. Vought has been experimenting on children, attempting to create stronger soups by exposing them to increasingly dangerous doses of Compound V. Deku sees the frightened children and remembers why he became a hero. He becomes furious. His One for All energy begins spreading through the facility. Every soup inside feels it. Homelander arrives with the Seven. He expects Deku to surrender when he realizes that he is surrounded. Instead, Deku tells the boys to get the children out, then he turns toward Homelander. A-Train attacks first. Deku activates Danger Sense, predicts the movement, and uses Black Whip to redirect A-Train into a reinforced wall without seriously injuring him. Black Noir attacks next, but Deku combines F.A. Jean with One for All and knocks him unconscious before he can complete his second strike. Queen Maeve approaches more carefully. Deku refuses to attack her. He tells her that he knows she does not want to be there. Maeve hesitates. Then Homelander attacks. Deku finally stops holding back. One for All surges through his body as he launches himself forward. The collision sends shockwaves through the facility. Homelander uses his heat vision, but Deku changes direction in midair and avoids the attack while Black Whip pulls him toward another position. Deku begins combining his inherited abilities. F.A. Jean stores kinetic energy. Black Whip controls his movement. Danger Sense predicts attacks. One for All amplifies everything. Homelander is overwhelmed, but he refuses to admit it. Desperate, he grabs one of the rescued civilians and threatens to kill her if Deku does not surrender. The entire room becomes silent. Deku's expression changes. He disappears. Within a fraction of a second, the civilian is safely beside Starlight while Deku stands directly in front of Homelander. One controlled strike sends Homelander through the facility wall. Deku follows him outside and catches him before he can crash into a populated area. The cameras capture everything. Vought's greatest hero used a civilian as a shield. The outsider they call the Dangerous Soup risked himself to save her. The public sees the truth. Homelander escapes, but his image suffers a devastating blow. Butcher wants to kill him immediately. Deku refuses. Butcher becomes furious and asks how many people Homelander has to hurt before Deku finally stops believing that everyone can be saved. Deku answers that he does not believe everyone can be saved. He simply refuses to stop trying. Butcher has no response. For the first time, he realizes that Deku's idealism is not weakness. It is the source of his strength. Deku vs. Homelander. Homelander finally abandons his public image completely. Vought is losing control, the Seven are divided, and millions of people have begun questioning everything they were told about their heroes. Homelander blames Deku for the collapse. He challenges him publicly. Homelander promises to destroy an entire section of New York if Deku refuses to fight. Deku accepts, but only after forcing Homelander to follow him far away from civilians. They meet in an isolated area where nobody else can be injured. Homelander attacks with everything he has. He flies at incredible speed, fires his heat vision, and strikes with enough force to destroy massive sections of the landscape. Deku blocks, dodges, and redirects the attacks while continuously analyzing Homelander's movements. For the first time, Deku understands the difference between Homelander and the villains he has fought before. Homelander is not simply powerful, he is terrified of being powerless. That fear makes him reckless. Eventually Homelander screams at Deku to stop holding back. Deku gives him what he wants. One for All reaches its full combat output. His body becomes surrounded by lightning-like energy as the combined abilities of previous users activate. Black Whip extends through the battlefield while F.A. Jean boosts his movements. Danger Sense predicts Homelander's attacks, and Deku's raw strength pushes him beyond anything Homelander has previously encountered. Homelander fires his heat vision. Deku dodges. Homelander attacks from behind. Danger Sense warns him. Deku turns and blocks the punch. Then he delivers one controlled strike. The impact sends Homelander flying across the landscape. Homelander attempts to rise. Deku is already there. He could end the fight permanently. Instead, he tells Homelander that strength is supposed to protect people, not make them afraid. Homelander attacks one final time. Deku uses Black Whip to restrain him and releases a devastating but controlled attack that knocks Homelander unconscious. The fight is over. Deku carries Homelander back to the authorities instead of killing him. When Butcher sees Homelander lying unconscious, he raises his weapon. Deku stands between them. Butcher tells him to move. Deku refuses. He explains that killing Homelander now would allow Vought to control the story, while keeping him alive forces the entire world to see what he really is and answer for what he has done. Butcher asks whether Deku honestly believes someone like Homelander deserves another chance. Deku answers that he does not know, but he knows that becoming an executioner is not what being a hero means to him. Butcher slowly lowers his weapon. Vought collapses soon afterward. Starlight exposes the remaining evidence, government sees Compound V facilities, and the public begins questioning the entire system that allowed corporations to manufacture heroes without meaningful accountability. Members of the Seven are forced to answer for their crimes, while the boys continue dismantling the networks Vought created. Deku does not become a member of the Seven, he refuses every corporate contract. He spends his remaining time helping rebuild the communities damaged during the conflict and searching for a way back to his own universe. Eventually, the dimensional energy that brought him to this world appears again. Before leaving, Butcher asks him one final question: if Deku was powerful enough to defeat Homelander from the beginning, why did he keep trying to save him? Deku takes a moment before answering. He says that being strong does not mean having the right to decide who deserves to live. It means having enough strength to protect people without allowing that power to turn you into the same kind of monster you are fighting. Butcher looks away. He still does not completely agree, but he understands. Deku smiles, raises his hand, and says goodbye to the boys before stepping into the dimensional energy. Moments later, he disappears. The world remembers him differently from the Seven. There are no Vought commercials featuring his face, no corporate sponsorships, and no carefully scripted interviews telling people that he is America's greatest hero. Deku never needed any of that. Homelander spent his entire life demanding that the world love him because he believed admiration was proof of superiority. Deku possessed incredible power but never needed people to worship him. That was the difference Vought could never understand. One for All was not powerful simply because it could destroy mountains or overwhelm soups. Its true strength came from the people who had carried it before Deku, the sacrifices they had made, and the belief that power should be passed forward to protect those who could not protect themselves. In the world of the boys, where heroes had become products and power had become a business, Deku would represent something Vought could never manufacture: a hero who did not need anyone watching. A hero who would run toward danger even when he was afraid, a hero who could defeat Homelander, but still choose not to become him. And if Deku had truly entered the world of the boys, Homelander would have discovered something far more frightening than another powerful soup. He would have discovered a young hero who was stronger than him, more disciplined than him, and, most importantly, completely uninterested in becoming a god. Because Homelander believed that the strongest person should stand above everyone else, Deku believed the strongest person should stand in front of everyone else, and in the end, that difference would be enough to change the entire world.